So there's a lot of different environmental sociology topics in the news lately, but one that stuck out really recently um, was the United Kingdom government seeking a delay for the Clean Air Plan that they've been trying to implement over the last couple of years. So my name is Samuel Brock. This is going to be my presentation video, and thank you for taking the time to watch it before class. So the air pollution in the UK is the important background to understand, so I'll go over that a little bit first, even though I believe we've talked about it in class a couple different times, and it's kind of interesting that this keeps coming back up as a topic. So, again, UK air pollution has been declining in the past few decades, but it's still a really serious problem, especially in the large urban areas such as London, which are densely populated areas, but strangely enough, again, a lot of the pollution tends to just settle in these areas and kind of affect those large groups of people. And even just last year alone in the UK, roughly 40,000 people had early deaths that were contributed to the air pollution. Well, that was, taking up the environment that they were living in. So, what is the pollution made up of? There's different types of air pollution. A lot of the air pollution in the UK comes from excess molecules from industry and transportation. So a lot of the molecules given off are given off by coal, oil, and other fuels. Transportation and vehicles are still a large contributor of these harmful molecules, industrially produced byproducts most of the time anyway, and a lot of them are things such as oxides. One of the main prominent ones is sulfur dioxide, which causes irritation of lungs and increases acidity of the air around the environment. Nitrogen dioxide, which is one of the big ones that's going to be coming into question, especially in this particular case, has similar effects to sulfur dioxide, but is a much larger problem in the UK. And then we have carbon monoxide, which prevents uptake of oxygen by the blood, and it can, for that reason, have a very heavy effect on, well, impact on those people who are suffering from heart disease. Lastly, there's just various fine particles in different types. They can come from different sources and different things, but any kind of particles that are in the air are really going to sort of irritate anyone who's affected by asthma. It can help sort of increase the chances of people getting lung and heart disease and just general inflammation overall. So this is a picture of London, and you can see that this is a really acidic kind of looking fog, and it's really thick and it's kind of gross. Because most of the time you think of fog and you think, oh, it's just water, like water vapor, but this is all like pollutants. So the effects of air pollution on the environment and the surrounding area in the UK, there's a lot of different ones, but I'm going to kind of touch upon some of the main ones here. So acid rain is a big one. It causes corrosion and can even potentially corrode skin and affect tissue if you breathe it in. It can also cause damage to plants that aren't able to survive in more acidic soils and acidic environments. Plant damages can also really affect the agriculture industry in the UK, as it definitely has a big impact on crop yields. Because again, if they can't survive acidic soils or acidic environments, they're not going to survive. A lot of different animals can be affected by the poor air quality and can become sick as well. But it can also really affect aquatic life because when there's acid rain, it can also cause acidification of lakes and ponds, and that can come again through acidic rain or even snow in some cases. Um, but yeah, it creates acidic and toxic fogs, which people breathe in. And again, that can really irritate the respiratory system and cause a lot of various problems. And the vegetation ecosystems in general can also really be harmed. Because again, anything that's acidic or corroding really is going to have a lot of an impact on organic tissues. So how is this problem being dealt with? Because it's clearly a big issue, and the UK even has declared it officially to be a public health crisis. So one group in particular is really responsible for sort of pushing, turning up the pressure, like I wrote here, but really kind of just making sure that something's being done about it. And this group is it's a global group. They're in a lot of different countries, but they're a collective group of activists and environmental lawyers, and they go by the name of Client Earth. Back in 2015, they won a Supreme Court ruling against the UK government that essentially stated that they're going to have to plan to lower air pollution. And Client Earth also took action again in November of 2016 to get the plan improved because it wasn't exactly where they wanted it to be. So where's the plan now? That's what's bringing about this current event, and that's what's making this a topic and something that people are talking about all throughout Europe, not even just in the UK. So Earth Client's lawsuit resulted in a plan that would give the UK government until um, May 1st, which is coming up in just another week, that's next Monday, to publish a plan for reducing air pollution to a level within legal limits. The main purpose, again, as I kind of foreshadowed earlier, was to combat illegal levels of nitrogen dioxide, which is that NO2, which again is going to cause a lot of acidification in the air. It's going to cause lung and respiratory problems. It's just pretty nasty stuff in general to be breathing in. And it's contributing really heavily to the overall poor air quality. So the current existing measures in the UK don't even meet the requirements of the law that's currently in place. I believe some of these standards were from the European Union after Brexit. I know the UK is not entirely interacting with the EU, but overall they're still being pushed to change this as everywhere else around them is changing it, and the people who are there still want them to be doing this. So the UK government's request, again, this is really the sort of main driver that's been causing this current event. So as of today, or well, April 24th, the UK officials have requested an extension on the publishing for the draft of its Clean Air Plan, which Client Earth had driven them and petitioned them to put in place. So this request was made by the UK's Department for Environmental, Food and Rural Affairs, which is also known as DEFRA. The justification for the extension is that the officials would like to wait until the end of the general election, which takes place June 8th. So they also made sure to add that their logic behind it, which they said is because it's necessary to comply with the election rules in place that limit announcements with political implications during a period of election. And so basically, in a sense, they're saying that by announcing any kind of large changes, it's going to have a political impact, and it wouldn't be constitutional of them to do so during this period of time, which is kind of interesting because in a sense it's not something I would personally think of as political, because if you have people dying from air pollution, you'd think that would be something they'd want to fix. So the reaction of the UK citizens in Client Earth um, to this request. So Client Earth has stated that they're considering whether or not to challenge the request in court, as they're certainly not happy with it. The request is widely seen as an unacceptable move, especially considering many people feel that public health is not an issue of politics. There are those, of course, who argue that it can be, but it's a matter of opinion. To appeal the request, what they would likely have to do is they'd have to go through the Supreme Court in the UK as well as the High Court, which, if it got approved and reviewed, would end up probably, most likely, according to a couple experts, taking longer than it would be just to wait for the request in the first place to go through, even with the delay. It's really viewed by a lot of different people as a tactical move by the officials to buy more time, while the UK is continuing to suffer because they'd have to put a lot of taxes and implement a lot of different laws, and they think that the current people and the current officials are trying to avoid doing so because they'd have to make a lot of tough decisions that could affect connections between the government and industry. So officials stated basically that they've already committed more than £2 billion towards measures to reduce air pollution and are on the right track. But while they're on the right track, there's still clearly a really prevalent issue that's affecting a lot of different people, and it's still definitely not an acceptable level. So the implications of stalling the draft. This is sort of the last kind of thing that if this is to be delayed and nothing happens, and they decide not to address the problem until after the election, if they even do that in the first place or end up doing that, these are some of the things that could happen. And one of the large ones is over 10,000 more people could have early deaths, and again, it would be linked to air pollution if this 3 month delay does take place. And 10,000 people is a lot of people, no matter who you are, and no matter what political party you're in my opinion. It seemed like that was also sort of how a lot of the people in the UK were feeling as well, which is causing a lot of conflict between the citizens of the UK and their government. So the policy has already been delayed in a sense for 7+ years. Not exactly this draft. This has not been delayed that long, but there's been a push in the UK for 7 or so years now to move and sort of rectify a lot of the problems that have been happening with the air pollution as it's been decreasing, but because they're still above that legal limit, which is making it illegal. And even if they decide to delay it again, there's still no guarantees that the UK will finally go through with implementing the draft once it's delayed again. So the UK will continue to have illegal levels of emissions if this is stalled, at least for the time being. And the Royal Colleges of Physicians believes that asthma, heart disease, lung disease, and a lot of other different diseases could all become a lot more prominent in the country even in these 3 months. So, and then lastly, if we tie it back to the environmental or sort of the external environment apart from from people in these large urban areas, this acidic rain and toxic fog and just all these horrible things that are being produced from the air pollution are still going to potentially destroy habitats, affect wildlife, and it's going to continue. And of course, this kind of damage isn't sustainable, which is why it needs to be addressed as soon as possible. So that's pretty much the current event and the problem in general. So if you guys enjoyed the video, which I hope you did, but it's environmental sociology, so I mean it's interesting stuff, kind of things going on in the world. Um, I hope you'll have some questions for me in class when I present and ask you discussion questions. So thank you so much for watching.